Sunday at the age of 98. It's NPR News. Live in Philadelphia, this is WHYY News. It is 2:04. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Cherry Gregg. The race for Pennsylvania's open U.S. Senate seat may have another Republican contender. WHYY's Sophia Schmidt reports.
Prominent Philly lawyer George Bachetto said it's very likely he'll run for the open Senate seat, the AP reports. Bachetto won a ruling this summer preventing the city of Philadelphia from removing a statue of Christopher Columbus. He also told the AP he helped write the defense brief in former President Donald Trump's second impeachment trial. The race for the seat left open by retiring Republican Senator Pat Toomey is heating up. Dr. Mehmet Oz announced his candidacy late last month, and on the Democratic side, candidates include Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman and Congressman Conor Lamb. Sophia Schmidt, WHYY News.
Starting on Monday, students can mark their gender as non-binary in the school district of Philadelphia system. Superintendent William Hyde announced the change Thursday. He called it an important step forward in our effort to become a more equitable and inclusive school district. Under the new policy, students will be able to use a Google form to inform their school about a change to their name, gender, or both. Students can choose whether they want their updated information to appear on formal documents too, like report cards and assessments. The updated information will not show up in any state-run systems. While the district can note that a student identifies as non-binary, Hyde said they're also legally required to submit the information listed on one's legal birth certificate. In response to rising COVID-19 case counts on campus, the University of Pennsylvania has prohibited all indoor social gatherings during the final weeks of the semester. Over the past week of testing, officials say they saw more confirmed COVID-19 positive cases after 3 days of testing than they had seen in the previous week. New COVID cases are primarily among students and are linked to indoor social gatherings. UPenn cites increases in COVID-19 positivity in Philadelphia and Montgomery counties for the decision. It's 2:06. It's a cloudy 45 degrees in Chester Springs. This is WHYY News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Morgan Stanley with Season 1 of At Scale. Innovators, designers, advocates, and entrepreneurs offer different perspectives on the problem of plastic waste. Season 1 of At Scale, wherever podcasts are available.
Might be the world's most recognizable newborn cry. Sweet Baby Babble is from Stevie Wonder's 1976 Isn't She Lovely? And it is still a bop 55 years after Wonder celebrated the birth of his daughter with these words. This is the romantic sugar plum vision of what to expect when you're expecting. A strong, healthy baby born into the loving arms of well-prepared parents who've joyfully anticipated her arrival. It is a lovely vision and worthy aspiration for the start of life. But it's just one of the many ways new humans enter the world. The many different realities of birth are where we begin on today's episode of The Takeaway. I'm Melissa Harris Perry, and I'm joined by Dorian Warren, co-president of Community Change, co-founder of the Economic Security Project, and my co-host for Takeaway Deep Dives. Hey, Dorian.
Hey, Melissa. Isn't she lovely indeed? And it's always so good to be with you on The Takeaway. This week, we are exploring the one experience which is absolutely necessary and entirely irreplaceable to continue humanity: childbirth.
Look, it's a good point. I mean, reproductive technologies have innovative strategies and have some surprising new ways to fertilize eggs, to grow early embryos, but there's still only one way that potential human life becomes an actualized human: a pregnant person must give birth.
That's an interesting phrase, Melissa. A pregnant person must give birth. Because last week, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments in the Mississippi abortion restriction case, Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health. And if the Supreme Court overturns Roe versus Wade, then many people who otherwise might have chosen to terminate their pregnancies will be compelled to carry those pregnancies to term, meaning that a pregnant person must give birth could become a legal requirement and lived reality.
We're not going to know about the Mississippi ruling for at least a month. But on Friday, the court released its decision to let stand a restrictive abortion law out of Texas, which effectively bans most abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy. Now, this decision, it's complex, and it's going to be the subject of significant analysis in coming days. But just to be clear, the key outcomes are that the court's allowing the Texas law to remain in effect for the time being. The court did fully reject one of the challenges to that law, which was brought by the federal government. But the court did allow a second challenge, one that was brought by abortion providers themselves, to proceed. So for now, Roe v. Wade remains precedent. People who are pregnant today in the state of Texas are subject to the country's most restrictive terms if they want to terminate their pregnancies. And at 6 weeks, many won't even know they're pregnant. So Dorian, we got to be judicious, right? As we're awaiting the decision in the Mississippi case. But it's worth noting, if the court overturns Roe, it will mean that many more pregnant people will be required by the laws of the state to give birth. And whether you celebrate this outcome as a hard-won pro-life victory or decry it as a devastating blow in the battle for reproductive justice, I think it's critical for us as a nation to openly and honestly understand what is at stake when we require pregnant people to give birth.
And that is why this is the right time for a deep dive on childbirth. And even though childbirth has become a social and political issue, it is such an intimate experience that we wanted to begin with your personal stories out there. Here are some of what you told us about how you have experienced childbirth.
Hi, my name's Lisa Burns. I'm from Dallas, Texas. When I was pregnant, I was diagnosed with stage 4 triple-negative breast cancer that was quickly metastasizing through my body. I had to do chemotherapy while I was pregnant with my daughter. After the second chemotherapy, she was delivered the next day at 37 weeks. She was healthy, but it was definitely a harrowing experience going through that at the same time.
Hi, this is Lisha from northern Wisconsin. The best delivery I had was with my third son. I had a midwife, and she had me deliver on my side because of really bad back labor, because I have a tipped uterus. It was the least painful of all 4. The worst was my last delivery. 2.5 months early, they tried to stop the contractions with mag sulfate, which really was torture in itself. And finally, after seeing that it was not helping the contractions, I was allowed to give birth. So 11 hours start to finish, and I went from 6 centimeters to birth in 10 minutes. Ouch. And I'm glad he was the last, because if he was the first, he probably would have been the only.
Now, thanks to everybody who called in to share those stories. I mean, clearly, Dorian, there's no single story that captures all birth experiences. But let's just pause for a second and try to understand a few things that tend to characterize childbirth in the U.S. today. So, according to CDC statistics, birth rates have been declining in the U.S. for more than a decade. They've fallen each year in every racial category and every age group. And women are also delaying motherhood. Back in 1980, the median age when a woman had her first child was about 23 years old. Today, the median age is nearly 28. And more than 98% of births, they occur in hospitals. But there are some families who choose birthing centers or even their own home as the best place to welcome new life. In this country, about 1 in 3 babies are born via cesarean. That is the highest rate for surgical birth in the world. Also, a full 71% of labors are assisted by epidurals.
Melissa, as the dad of a 14-month-old, I must admit that, frankly, finding credible, useful information about childbirth was sometimes difficult. And obviously, the internet is full of information. But navigating that search engine result for childbirth can feel like trying to walk through a potential minefield. For us, we had a great doctor who helped us understand what to expect and to figure out what we wanted. But with more than 4 million births in this country every year, it can be difficult to define an optimal birthing experience.
The number one thing that people tell me is they want to be able to birth or have the experience be the way that they would like the experience to be.
This is Dr. Monica McLemore, Associate Professor of Family Healthcare Nursing at the University of California, San Francisco.
A lot of times people want their family members around. They want to be able to have the traditional music and foods. They want the experience of their imagination to match the experience that they actually have. They are surprised that it is a battle when they want simple things like to get in the birthing tub, or whether or not they want an IV or not, or if they want to sit on the birthing ball or whatever. They are really surprised by the disconnect between the way they imagine their birth experience to be and what it truly is. And so part of my work that I'm doing now is to really try and make those things more congruent so that people can have the empowering birth experience they really, really want. And to take some of the battle out of it.
Now, that goal of being empowered to manage the direction and experience of giving birth is an ideal many of us have at the start of pregnancy, even at the start of labor. But boy, it can dissolve rapidly.
The sad reality is that out of every 100,000 women who give birth in this country, 17 will die as a result of complications from childbirth. Now, just to put that in context, this number means that the United States ranks last among industrialized nations. It means the American maternal mortality rate is double that of Canada and France, more than 5 times higher than Germany and the Netherlands, and more than 15 times higher than New Zealand.
It's important for us to note that globally we use this metric as a barometer for the health and wellness of a nation, because technically, childbearing families and pregnant capable people should be some of the healthiest and youngest individuals, and have good health outcomes.